Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transform Now. I'm Brad Hairston.
And I'm Michael Marchuk.
And this is the weekly pulse check, taking a look at what's popping in the news around automation and AI. Michael, let's dive right in. Our first article comes to us from the New York Post and is titled, Amazon Workers Rage Apply, that's in quotes, for other jobs after RTO mandate adds hours to commute. I will not go back, says one employee. So RTO, of course, is short for return to office. That's kind of a bad acronym these days. Usually when you hear that, you have somebody upset, employees and others. And so Amazon is the latest, their CEO coming out saying that he already told him to come back 3 days a week. Now he's saying as of the beginning of 2025, he wants him back full time. And so that's getting quite a furious reaction from many of his employees. And some of them are looking elsewhere for new opportunities. So what do you think about this news item?
I've had a couple thoughts, and I think there's one that could probably figure out right away. I feel very strongly about remote work, especially considering that throughout the pandemic, nearly every company had to go that route and found that they were getting the same kind of productivity they were getting when folks were in the office. So that's certainly one aspect that's kind of surprising, especially considering Amazon is a very technologically forward company.
Right.
So seeing this kind of RTO thing is a bit surprising. But on the other hand, I can somewhat understand it if you look at it from maybe a corporate fairness perspective. And here I am, I'm trying to stretch this, by the way. If you consider the number of workers who are within the Amazon warehouses who are at work every day, because they kind of have to be at work every day to make sure that they're able to pack and then move transport the products, that perhaps that's one reason why this would kind of give them a level playing field in that, hey, these employees have to be in their office, you should be in your office.
Right.
Again, I don't advocate for physical location specifically when the roles can be done from anywhere, especially given our tools we have available now, which are very much aligned with remote work or office to office, inter-office type of work where we're not actually physically together. Now, there's some benefits about being physically together for sure, in terms of collaboration and sort of camaraderie and that sort of thing. Absolutely agree about that. But we've seen the same thing happen at X, formerly Twitter, where there was a demand by the CEO for people to return to office, and not done very subtly either. So I see this as I don't know, maybe a misplaced demand by executives in order to get their workers to come back to the office. Now, again, there's a couple of things behind it. They may be looking at all this office space that they've got 20-year leases on and trying to figure out what to do with it as an executive. Why are we having all these leases if no one's there anymore? This is a burden on our company. I'll just demand that everybody come back. Versus perhaps looking at alternative uses for it, or perhaps breaking their lease, or whatever the issues are associated with it. But as an executive, I think it does fall on deaf ears when they have these kind of demands, when in fact their organization has been operating pretty well without them.
Yeah. Well, as to the reason for this move, I looked at another article that quoted their CEO, Jassy, who said that he wants to go full bore RTO because there are too many inefficiencies and excessive meetings and excessive approvals resulting from remote work. So kind of an interesting perspective. Michael, we've seen this movement in banks and companies like that. I think this is the first time one of the big tech companies has mandated, everyone be back 5 days a week. So I was really surprised by it. And like you, I'm a huge fan of remote work. I've been remote working for 6 years now, and I'm struggling to see how I could go back to an office. I may have to at some point in the future, but boy, It's been a very positive thing all the way around. My last question on this is rage applying. Is this a Gen Z term? I don't think I've ever heard that. Rage apply.
I suspect it has something to do with that. We had quiet quitting before where people just sort of disappeared. This is more, I'm going to do this in your face and show you how disapproving I am of this particular decision you've made. So I think that's where that, besides rage apply, I mean, that gives you a better headline than just people are applying for new jobs because they don't like RTO. So
yeah, I suppose so. It just doesn't set the right tone. I'm going to rage apply for something. Okay, well, our second article, and actually this relates to Amazon as well. So Amazon funded a study by MIT, and the results of the study were reported on by Fast Company in an article that's titled "Employees See Benefits of AI and Automation, but want their bosses to prioritize upskilling." So this is interesting in the fact that upskilling really comes out as one of the big, findings. But in general, the results seem pretty positive. And a lot of the results of this focused on American workers. It wasn't necessarily a international study, didn't have a global flavor to it. But what did you think about the findings that were highlighted in this article?
Well, to your point, so this is an MIT study that was funded by Amazon. So going back to our last story, maybe they'll fund one on RTO that they'll find to be very positive too. So I always have a little skepticism when I hear that a company who is funding these may directly impact or be beneficial from the results that come out of it. So as I see this, there is a plus to it. I tend to agree with the findings though, regardless of who funded it. And that's the organizations who are embracing this are seeing that their employees, when it's handled properly, can see a different path forward or a different career path than perhaps they're on right now. And most of them felt like they wanted to have tasks automated, not roles or jobs automated, which would imply that those roles would no longer exist. But whenever you apply automation and AI in any organization and you do it well, you're likely going to see transitions in the things that are the work that is done in a specific role, or maybe roles transition to different kinds of roles that didn't exist before, because it's necessary. I mean, this is a kind of a change type of thing that happens. So I do see this as a plus in the long term. I think in the short term, as we've seen with automation and any of the technologies, the adoption piece tends to have some resistance to start with because it's change. And when you ask people to change in any way, it's very difficult because now they have to learn something new and understand how it impacts them. And will this give me the same quality of life at work that I had before? What kind of things, am I too old to take this on? Is this something that I won't be able to learn because I don't feel like I'm capable of it? So there's a lot of questions that come into play. But I believe in the long term, as people see this as a transition, they're going to understand that this is a normal course of business. Certainly, I think the Gen Z, millennials for sure, Gen X to a certain extent, maybe not the boomers as much, see this as a normal course of life in a career. So you will be changing quite a lot, whether the change is forced upon you or you decide to change because you want something new. This rapid change is going to be affecting all of our roles in one way or another. And embracing it is probably the easiest and certainly less anxiety producing than try to force yourself against it because you don't want to change, which we saw one of our articles last week about the dock workers.
This doesn't apply to the longshoremen for sure. They would not have voted in favor of this. In fact, they are striking now, as you know.
Yes.
We talked about them last week and their demands for higher pay, which is understandable, but also for a total ban on all automation in their workplace, which probably won't be agreed upon. Michael, this article, one thing I did find interesting, it tried to categorize or it tried to derive some takeaways in terms of what types of jobs or what types of roles are the ones that see the biggest benefit of automation and AI. And it talked about workers with jobs that have to solve complex problems, workers that feel valued by their employees, workers that are happy with their jobs, who are motivated to move up in their careers. All those things they found to be characteristics of those that in general favored automation and AI. I thought that was kind of interesting. I can see the other side of that. If you're a longshoreman and you're not happy and you're working 80 hours a week, and but you also worry about putting food on the table, and you see all this automation happening, and you're not thinking about upskilling necessarily. You're thinking about, will I have a job if they bring in all this high-tech stuff? So yeah,
Yep.
Great article. I appreciate your thoughts. So the last article is from the Register, and it relates to a topic we've covered quite a bit on this pulse check. That is the surging power demand globally that has been exacerbated by the rise of AI. So Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the article reads that Altman reportedly asked President Biden, to back a slew of multi-gigawatt scale AI data centers. And it is speaking to a specific move by Altman to convince the current administration that we need five, I think it was, they didn't really specify a number, but 5 to 7. Yeah. They said 5 to 7 new, very large data centers, like 5 gigawatt data centers are needed. And I think he's trying to motivate them by pointing to China and saying, we need to maintain our technological lead over China. So we've got to have these data centers. So what do you think about this, about Altman appealing to the president and his team to try to drive this forward?
It reminds me of a scene in Back to the Future when Marty came in to the professor and he said, you need 1.2 gigawatts to be able to make this happen. The only place you get is a bolt of lightning, and the panic that was ensuing because of what he was seeing and thinking about. And I see the same thing here, maybe not quite as dramatic, but the fact is that based on what we have currently available right now, there are only 3 nuclear power plants in the United States at this point in time that can even power a single one of these. So, and of course, those are all powering millions of homes as they're standing.
Mm-hmm.
So the likelihood that we create 5 to 7 of these data centers that each have dedicated power like this becomes a big challenge, especially when you look at Microsoft's plan to reactivate 3 Mile Island, which of course,
Yes.
if you're perhaps our age, you remember the 3 Mile Island issues that were there and how scary that was. So bringing 3 Mile Island back online has some more emotional context to it than simply power. And even then, that particular power plant is only 1/5, less than 1/5 of the size necessary to be able to power one of these data centers.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking a lot of energy, and I know there's a lot of creative solutions that are going into play with more green energy, for example. In several spots in China, I know they're creating concentrated solar plants, which are using the molten salt reactor things to create 1 to 2 gigawatts of power each. But you'll need, again, a lot of that too. So no matter what you do, the infrastructure to simply power, again, this is just the power alone, becomes very expensive and very complex. Then you add on top of it, like this article is mentioning, and by the way, you're going to need to have roughly 2.5 million Blackwell GPUs. It's going to be able to support that. And given the fact that I believe they said that as they estimated, NVIDIA shipped roughly 600,000 of them in 2003 and 1.2 million sometime this year in 2004. You're talking about 2 years worth of chips at the current stage and current power requirements to be able to fit into or fill one of these data centers that Sam Altman wants. Now, totally understand, AI does require power to be able to generate the training and the data sets that needs to be able to get that artificial intelligence rolling. But I'm guessing we're going to need some other kinds of breakthroughs from a power or chip standpoint to really move us into that next phase.
No doubt about it. And that last point you make about the GPUs, boy, NVIDIA is doing backflips over that. As if they needed more revenue, as if they needed more positivity, right? So
exactly.
To me, the best thing about this article, I'm a big fan of nuclear power, and nuclear is clearly making a comeback, but by the hand of AI. The fact that Microsoft now is investing in bringing back 3 Mile Island. You've got Amazon that's recently bought a site right next to a nuclear power plant. I don't think they can meet the power demands that they anticipate any other way. You don't see them talking about how many windmills or solar farms, they're going to have to build. I'm in support of renewable energy, absolutely, but probably one of the most renewable, the cleanest energies out there that most people still are in denial about is nuclear. So I think in a roundabout way, we're going to continue to see a lot of focus on that as a primary way to fuel all of this AI growth. So, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us in our Pulse Chat conversation. Remember, we publish another podcast with an amazing guest every week, so be sure and check that out. And then we will see you next time on the weekly Pulse Chat. Bye for now.